SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Toyota Brookhaven services all makes and models. That could be why we were voted best service department the past 2 years. Come see why. Exit 40 Brookhaven or online at ToyotaBrookhaven.com. Great service, great savings. At Toyota Brookhaven, we deliver.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man, way past 21.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. That's one of those you hate to come over music that quality, Lance.
I want to step on that stuff.
That's exactly
I hear it
right.
every day, and I still love it.
I know it's a good way to start the show.
It is a classic. And I thought when Will put that together, the first day we played it, it was like, whoa, man, I love this. So Will is very good.
He is great. He is great.
He wears a lot of hats, but I don't think a lot of folks know how much of the design and graphic work and things of that nature he does. And it's just like snap, snap, snap. Yeah, this is how you do it.
Well, I know I appreciate, and I imagine everybody in the audience appreciates, even if they're not totally aware of it, the amount of work that goes in behind the scenes to put together all the great programming on SuperTalk. Will's on the air sometimes too, but does a great job, like everybody at TeleSouth, putting these things together.
What you been up to? It's been too long, right?
I know.
The whole summer.
I think it's been April or May. I mean, we're legitimately catching up. The 4 minutes or so before the mic went hot wasn't enough time.
I was like, hey, man, what's up? You were here early and everything. And I love the attire. Folks, he has put on his first weekend tailgating attire. He's testing it out, making sure everything looks right.
We're getting close.
In football mode. How do you feel? I mean, you getting excited about football? Are you kind of a little worried about the team? Or what is it?
I mean, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to football season because it's a fun time of the year. You see a lot of friends, the experience. As a State fan, I don't expect us to be taking a trip to Atlanta this year for a football game, but I think it's fun to be in football season no matter what the winning.
You don't have Georgia Tech
is.
On the schedule away, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm more I'm more thinking we probably don't need to book tickets for the SEC championship this year.
It seems like there's a lot of positive feedback coming back from the Bulldog side of things. I know Southern Miss hearing a lot of really good things as well. These two are going to tie up. That's a pretty big game to start the season.
Yeah,
with
that's
both
right.
teams kind of reeling off Southern rough season, new coach, second-year coach for State, a lot of guys back, and you got a healthy quarterback, it seems. That usually plays well, having a shot.
Yes.
You got to have a healthy QB to have a shot.
Well, and I think it helps, to be realistic about what the season is likely to look like. And I think we've got a very realistic fan base. We're in a regrowth period at State. I mean, this is not a year we're likely to go 8-4. That's just not, that's not realistic.
If you do, you go, wow, that was some coaching.
I hope, and to be clear, I'd be thrilled if we did.
Well, there's so much optimism around Ole Miss, but you're returning few starters from last year. You have a lot of new guys. It takes time to gel. These seasons you don't get a lot of parachute time where you can just bail out in the first 4 games and learn. You got to get going quick. Ole Miss has a solid Georgia State team, but then travels to Kentucky. So, there's a game last year that kind of threw them off. So I know everybody's getting excited about football, though. I know I am. The weather last night, it was almost a little cool after the rain.
Yeah, after the rain, it did cool it all.
I was like, oh, okay.
Although it was steamy this morning.
Man, it was. Yeah, as I said, when I walk out and my brow starts sweating immediately, the humidity's back.
Yes.
There was a nice reprise for a moment last night. And, it's it'll be here before you know it. But we still have we're only at the halfway point of what they call summer, right? I mean, that was like a week ago.
It's funny because, in my mind still, and I hadn't been in school for quite some time. I got kids
you
in
and me
school,
both.
but in my mind, the seasons are kind of fixed to the school calendar, at least the school calendar the way it was in the
They keep
80s and
moving
90s.
it around, though. I mean,
yeah, but it's like school started, so it's fall,
That's
even though
right.
it's not
It
not
feels
actually
like
fall.
around the corner. Those first couple of high school games, they can be a little cookie as far as the heat.
And we're coming. What is next Friday or next Thursday? Friday, is that the start of high school
Yes.
football?
You'll have MAIS games.
Okay.
We'll start at the third week of August. We'll start the high school football scoreboard show the last week of August, which would be that 29th. The Friday night, that's when everybody's really on. You got MAIS, MHSAA. And look, if you haven't looked at the classifications, I'm not going to bore you folks with that, but many things have changed this season between the MAIS classifications and on the public school side. So, take a look.
Folks
There's been
moving
some
up, moving
jockeying
down.
around. Right, the 7A moved around a lot, and so some traditional matchups that you were used to seeing for a few years, when they go through these redistricting or rescheduling, and it'll change things up. So just take a look. A lot of new things, a lot of big games coming, and it'll all be fun. That was it 4A, the biggest academy level. That's going to be really fun to watch this year because you've merged really a lot of 3A and 4A teams now. So you have
All
a true,
together in
you have a
4A.
true 4A, where in the past it was 5 teams. And, they kind of beat up each other. And then you'd get to the playoffs and say, well, the team that won in the season is not going to win in the playoffs, and because you knew each other. So it's going to be interesting to watch that new level to me, because there's been a lot of new players in there, a lot of new teams with opportunities to shine against the traditional powers in that, and the Jackson Academies and Hartfields and Prep and MRA, and St. Joe is in there now. But yeah, you'll see a lot of teams that haven't been in that classification. Should be really fun because that always brews for upsets.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
There's always an upset in there somewhere. And I love the upset. I love the underdog. I don't know why, but it's always fun to watch them.
It keeps it interesting, that's for sure.
That is
Keeps it interesting. How have you been? I mean, it really has been months since I've seen
It's
you
been
last.
months. I just enjoying the summer. I will be off next week, Monday through Friday. So first little, vacation, I would say.
Good for you.
Yeah, that I've had in a while. And
Because I'd ask you what you're doing this weekend, but I know what you're doing this weekend. You're working this weekend.
well, I'll work tomorrow. My birthday is tomorrow, Saturday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, man. I hit the 5-1 tomorrow. My sister's was Wednesday, and it'll be a good day though.
You and your sister are just a few days apart.
We are. It's funny. I run into so many people with birthdays in that 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. I think I know like 3 people that have the exact same birthday as mine, the exact same day. I grew up with a kid that his mom was back in the day, you didn't have your private room. It was the big birthing. Once you birthed your baby, there was 8 women, and you had
all together.
Yeah,
after.
this was like at the Baptist. And so I grew up with a kid, Jay Craig. Jay, happy birthday! Yeah, same day. His mom was in the bed right across, and a buddy of mine in Oxford, Zach Carey. Happy birthday tomorrow too. So yeah, I know a bunch of.
That's great. Well,
Yeah,
my oldest and my son and daughter, my oldest two, are similar. They're 2 years apart, but their birthdays are 5 or 6 days apart.
Well, and we have Teresa Kennedy from Jackson who is running for John Horn's seat. Her birthday is today. So Teresa, happy birthday today. I met her on Mary's show on Tuesday. I'm sorry. What a delightful person.
Really?
But yeah, her birthday is today. So happy birthday, Teresa. So a lot of birthdays today and yesterday, and people I know. So we have some famous ones out
yeah,
there.
who are some famous birthdays
Well,
here on
Jennifer
15?
Lawrence, everybody knows who she is. The beautiful Natasha Henstridge. The movie she was in with what was it? Terminal Velocity with Charlie Sheen.
I vaguely remember
back in
that.
the 80s.
Yeah.
It was a good one. It was like Skydive, like back when it was Skydive movie or something like that. Let's see. There were a couple others in there. It wasn't a huge day as far as the birthdays go. There was a bunch of things that did happen on this day, but the one big one I would say kind of takes the cake is the little dictator himself, Napoleon the First.
That's a real birthday right there.
That's a big one. Yeah, he was born in France. I'm sorry. Birthday is today, and died on May the 5th, 1821, on the island in which he was exiled, St. Helena, I think was how you say that one. He was 51.
That's a birthday worth mentioning because you look at the list sometimes and you go, I'm going to have to get on Google and figure out who these people are.
Well, Elvis passed on the 16th. Napoleon,
Okay.
so it's a lot of those things. Madonna was born on the 16th tomorrow, but the Napoleon one's a big one. And you also have Ben Affleck today.
There we go.
Jennifer Lawrence, as I mentioned. Melinda Gates. She is the divorced
I
other
did not
side
see
of
that.
Bill. And Anne, everybody knows Anne. You've made it when you just go by Anne.
You just go by Anne?
Yeah, the royal princess, British royalty, 1950 was her birthday. So Miss Anne.
Here we go.
happy
Tom
birthday.
Colicchio, Top Chef.
There you go. Well, on this day in history, it doesn't happen often where scientists at the Smithsonian announced the discovery of a species that they didn't know even existed. It's called the Olenguito, the first carnivore species to be discovered in the American continents in 35 years. It's a little small boreal animal, lives in the cloud forests of Colombia and Ecuador. Yeah, think about that, 2013.
And they just found
They
it?
just found it, yeah. I mean, that thing's been hiding out pretty good. It's got some Bigfoot qualities to it, I guess, with the sneakiness.
Oh, yeah, that just hadn't been seen,
It just
even though
hadn't
it's been
been
there
seen
for
yet,
all
so,
that time.
yeah.
Well, y'all, this is Lucian Smith and for Richard here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. Stick with us for more after this break.
The way did old Hank really do it this way? Speeding my young life away. Tell me one more time so I understand.
From the Venable Glass Track.
Mississippi in the know. One morning at a time. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. Got a great show coming up for you today. Stick with us. We've got Jason White, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, coming in at 7:20 to give us a little preview of what he's thinking about leading into or ahead of the legislative session that'll start next January. Lars Larson, nationally syndicated talk host, will be with us at the 8 o'clock hour. And then at 8:35, Phil Donlon, if you're a fan of the Chicago Fire series, he'll be on. He is participating in a Rock the Bald fundraiser happening on the coast to raise awareness and funds for children's cancer. So, great show. Stick with us. Stick with us for the whole day. And congratulations, everybody, because it is not just the 15th of August. It is Friday.
It is Friday the 15th of August. Yeah, and I'm glad it didn't. My sister is the one that has the 13th birthday, and it'll fall on that Friday every blue moon. I don't know the math on it. I'm not, excellent with that kind of stuff. But, yeah, the Friday the 13th birthday, she's had a few of those over the years. Yeah. So I wanted to mention Brian Sherwood from the Tallahatchies, great band out of Oxford. I play Bye Bye Birmingham on here a bit. I will play it today because his birthday is also the 16th. He just texted. And another funny factoid there, his sister's birthday is on the 13th.
There we go.
So you never know. I love Mississippi. Thank you guys for reaching out. It is a small community of friends, I think, especially our Super Talk family.
It is. Mississippi is essentially one big, small town.
That's right. I mean, when I say small, I don't mean that we have a small, but Mississippi's not a big state.
Yeah.
As far as the number of people, it feels like you know everybody, and if you don't, you get to meet them.
That's right.
Yeah, and I love that. Football season to me is one of the great times. I get to network more and meet more people, bump into folks, and they get to listen or who we get to reach out to. So it's always a great time because I'll go to some football games, to about halftime, and then I get to come up here and do the high school football scoreboard show where we have an amazing community of people that always fans it. Let us know what's going on out there in the towns and places in the counties in Mississippi that make this great state such a wonderful place. Now, I was going to ask you, did you make it over to the big Republican powwow in Rankin County the other night?
I was supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
I had a table there and was looking forward to getting there, but I was driving back from New Jersey. We went up to New Jersey. Yeah, not a very interesting story, but we went up. My in-laws live in New Jersey, and we took the kids up for the tail end of summer for them, and so
gardening up there, right? The Garden State.
Yes, and so I was planning to make it to the event. Was very much looking forward to it, and I broke the drive back in two.
Why not?
The kids flew back. They took a direct flight from Southwest out of Baltimore, but I drove back. And it was. I woke up I stayed the night in a hotel, and it was the first time I had not been sharing the bed with some child who was kicking me in the middle of the night. And I thought, You know what? I may just roll back over and go to sleep and read about this event. But it was a fundraiser. My money was there, and in my experience with raising money,
right, yeah.
We love your presence, but we'd prefer your check if we have to pick between the two.
Sounded like a great showing.
It really.
Mr. Duff blew it out of the water with no notes. And,
it sounded like it went great from what I have read and the feedback, and 300 to 600 people in the room, and I'm sure somebody can give me an exact count.
Yeah, I heard it had to be around 600. Is kind of from a couple of people.
That's what I had heard. And if you want to be part of the conversation, you can hit us up on the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. But yeah, it sounded like it was a really good event. He gave a good talk. It's going to be interesting to see.
Oh yeah,
what happens? What he ends up deciding to do.
Well, it's definitely it gives you something to think about.
Yes,
with that type of person out there, the success, the intelligence, and the know-how, I guess, the experience, and it's always nice to have, to me, that anomaly of a candidate. You get the one that you go, well, it doesn't really fit into the deck of cards, but that's a compelling card to have. He seems to be that guy. He's not your traditional candidate.
No, not at all.
If he chose to be one.
Not at all. And you look back, you think about it in Mississippi, for the most part, we have had, it's generally been down-ticket office holders who've run for governor. The auditor runs for governor. The AG runs for governor. So lieutenant governor runs for governor. They get promoted
by the people.
That's right. And it's only been a few times in recent history where you've had somebody come in. You had Haley Barber in 2003, who'd never held elected office before. Kirk Fordyce in the 91 election, who never held elected office before. But for the most part, and I'm sure somebody will text in and remind me of other examples of that. But for the most part, the people who have ended up living in the governor's mansion in Mississippi have started off in some other elected office and then gotten there. So this would be a very different kind of candidate, very different kind of race.
And again, going back to what 2003 range since we've
seen Haley was in 2003, so a little over 20 years, and it was 22 years before that. 22 years ago was Haley, and 22 years before Haley was Fordyce.
So if you're a charting expert and you see a trend here,
that's a very good point.
Well,
that's a very good point.
Cover a little weather real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
See how we're looking for the weekend? Well, if we're looking at Greenwood, 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, mainly after 1, sunny, high near 96. Going to be cooking, though, today. 107, not much wind to cool it off either. Tonight it'll cool down a little bit, 74. And tomorrow about a 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms after 1. So basically the same schedule in the Delta tomorrow if you got today. Sunny, hot, 107 heat index, not much wind and potential for a little bit of rain. We're going to cruise on over here to southwest Mississippi, hit Gulfport, and the coastal area looks pretty good. Slight chance of showers between 10 and 1 today. Maybe some after 1. Slighter chance, though. Mostly sunny, high near 91. Heat index will be at 108. No real wind, but maybe a little off the Gulf. Not enough to cool you off, though. Chance of precipitation about 30% today on the coast. 20% chance of showers tonight, low around 77. Light wind coming out of the southwest. And then tomorrow, about 40% chance of showers. Won't be quite as hot, but it'll be a little bit more chance of rain. So that gets our coastal outlook. Then we have up in the northeast corner, Corinth, Mississippi, 20% chance of showers, patchy fog. Otherwise, mostly cloudy. We've had a little fog a couple of days, too, a little pea soup as we've seen. So if you're up in that area, be careful in the morning. 30% chance of showers through the day, though. It looks like patchy fog will probably burn up about 9 a.m. So if you're driving in the hill country up there. Be careful. Calm wind, won't be blowing it off. 103 on the heat index.
Goodness.
Yeah. It's going to be hot everywhere. Tomorrow, 20% chance of showers and up to about 103 on the heat index, but the heat will be at 94 light wind. And then as far as our Meridian forecast, 50% chance of showers, so they're going to have a little bit more of a chance than anybody else today. Mostly sunny, though, high near 93 degrees, 102 on the heat index. Be light showers, won't be a whole lot to worry about, it looks like, but there may be a thunderstorm.
Just enough to make it a little steamy.
Yeah, just enough to aggravate you and get the mosquitoes out. And then tomorrow in Meridian, a 40% chance of showers, thunderstorms, and a light wind of around 5 miles an hour. Will be hot again, and it sounds like humid. So that rounds out our state of Mississippi forecast. So.
And if
stay cool.
It's the time of year where the only question is it going to rain some? Because it's going to be hot.
Yeah.
Maybe a little hotter, maybe a little less hot, but it's going to be hot.
It threatened to rain most of yesterday, it looked like, and then it would burn off, and then I was sitting out, and finally it decided. It
started really coming down late.
It started coming down a bit. So I know the yard needed it. Whenever you wake up the next day and you blow your nose and it looks like you got a little chocolate milky action, and so we might need some rain. I need some grass too. So my big German short-haired pointer has hoofs basically for feet, and this time of year just the grass is about gone. So I can't wait to replant the rye. The winter rye, and that it looks so pretty, but man, it makes everything so much better. So those of you who have healthy yards, congratulations. I wish. My front yard looks great. The backyard, though, it's a goat pen.
You get out there and water it? Is that
well, I'll have to basically stanchion it off and put about 200 pounds of rye out there and 2 or 3 different little plantings. And then it'll pop on up and start growing pretty good. But through the winter, I've loved having that. It's just great. But the summer, it'll die about a month ago if you can hold on to it long enough. As soon as it gets a little warm.
I'm always amazed at those folks who, it's great. This is not me, unfortunately, but the people who are able to keep their yard looking lush year round. I assume it involves a boatload of tending and watering and everything else.
I'm not an expert with the grass and yards, but, Garden Mom has taught me a lot over the years. I was driving to a neighborhood the other day, and it's always hard to get grass to grow in great, thickness underneath heavy shade. And I saw a house that had this beautiful grass under this thick shade of oak trees, and I'm like, I made note. I put the address down in the phone. I said, I'm going to circle back and talk to this person
and figure out what they're doing.
What have you been doing? Because it looked great. I think it was zoysia grass, but even then it's tough to, through the summer, keep it as beautiful, and then in the winter. But that stuff was so thick, it was like a pallet.
It looks fantastic when that stuff, when people are able to pull that off.
As you say, I took notes and said, I'm going to swing back and say hello.
Well, y'all, this is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. Come back for more with me and Lance after this.
And Stitcher.
Going next, Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
And talking in your sleep doesn't matter where you've been, as long as it was deep. Always knew to wear it well.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. On Friday, August the 15th. Thank you for being with us, and hope you'll stick with us for a great show today. If you want to be part of the conversation, you can hit us up at 601-879-4395. That's the C Spire text line. Lance,
one quick one for you,
please,
because it's my favorite movie of all time, and the movie Tropic Thunder makes fun of it a little bit, but this was the day in history in 1979 that after the most troubled production, Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now, was released. It became an instant classic, but noted for performances by Marlon Brando and Robert Duvall. Obviously, Mr. Sheen was in that. And the quote I love the smell of napalm in the morning. I think that became pretty iconic over the years.
It very much did.
And so that I wanted to mention that one before we did our little David Fisher Land Company sports, because at the end of the day, that's my favorite movie, and there's the uncut version is so long. If you've never watched the redux of it, where they throw in, which I guess was part of the production problem, they had 100,000 hours of film, and they were trying to figure out how could they make this a film in which people would actually go to and didn't have to come back next week to finish it, because it was so long. And so they cut it down, and they removed 3 or 4 chunks of the movie out of it that made it around 2.5 hours or so,
something like that.
So when they added those scenes back in it makes it flow so much better when you actually watch the redux. But there's some weird scenes in it, like with the Playboy bunnies, and then you come across the Montagnards, and it's really interesting when you go back and rewatch it the first time and you haven't seen the whole movie in its entirety as it was supposed to be seen.
How long is that extended cut?
Well, I think it adds 45, 47.
Okay.
So it pumps out a lot more stuff. And it's some weird things in there, too, that give you more layers of the craziness of that war. And then fast forward to Tropic Thunder, where basically they're, it's making fun of the 1979, finally. But they're making fun of a lot of movies.
Right.
In that, but the main premise is the greatest war movie ever made, And so that was Apocalypse Now, back in those days.
Yeah, Tropic Thunder has some great lines that I don't know that you some of which I don't think you can repeat on a family show.
If he was not in that, the Jack Black character just kind of throws a monkey wrench in everything that happens through the whole movie. He's just crazy.
Yes.
But yeah, he's a trip. And I'm a big fan of the Polka King. If you've never seen that movie with Jack Black,
I don't think I have.
It's a Netflix movie. It's a true story of an immigrant that came from Poland over to the Northeast, Jan Levon, and he had a polka band. And it's an absolutely fascinating story if you've never listened to it or watched it, because it is a true story. And he plays the part of this Polish immigrant, Jan Levon, so well. And, he just – I don't know how he does what he does and gets into character sometimes.
He is so talented.
Yes, he is. And underrated to me as a kind of part-playing actor. It's to him as a standalone star playing himself. He's not. But him in character, he's tough to beat.
He's impressive, and because I think people thought of him or think of him as just sort of the big wacky dude. And,
yes,
and you're right. He is actually a very talented, very talented actor.
Well, if you want to talk a little sport for a minute,
yeah, let's get some sports headlines.
Yeah, not a lot going on at this point. Obviously, we have football practices, and everybody's getting ready to go. Nobody's lost a game yet in college football. Everybody's team is hopefully healthy and doing well. I know I've been reading a lot about Ole Miss State and Southern Miss and Jackson State as well. I know Mississippi Valley, Alcorn. Everybody is seemingly feeling good about themselves. So I haven't heard
feels
much.
Good about themselves.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody's feeling good right now.
That's right.
So, but we'll go over to a little baseball right now because the MLB scoreboard, not a whole lot of games in action. The Braves actually won another game. They beat the Mets 4-3. You get into that point where you got to win some games if you're the Braves. 53-68, 6-4 in the last 10. So there's still room, but you got to play some ball because they've been really, really struggling through most of the season. Orioles beat the Mariners 5-3. Blue Jays 2-1 edged the Cubs. Two good teams right there, though. And the Cubs 66-52, 32-30 on the road, and Blue Jays 71-51. 2-1 on that ball game. The Guardians 9-4 over the Marlins, and the Nationals 3-2 over the Phillies. A couple more here that happened as well. Final in 11 innings, Detroit takes out the Twins 4-3. And then to round it out, the Diamondbacks 8-2 over the struggling Rockies. I think that's pretty much a theme year after year is the Rockies struggling. Yeah, don't know. They need to just get a bunch of big bashers, and get about 7 pitchers. Just spend the money on just guys that hit bombs and a few pitchers because, and in that park, you might as well just hit home runs.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a launching pad. Well, you got Toronto's leading in the American League East, 71-51 is the record. They're 5 up over Boston. Detroit 6.5 over the Guardians at 71-52. The Astros 68-53, 1.5 up on the Mariners. That catches us up on the American League side. National League, Phillies 69-52. They are 5 up on the Mets.
There we go.
Braves 16 back, but like I said, have won 6 out of the last 10. Playoff percentages are really low, though. So if they don't go on some kind of a streak here, wild card opportunities are gone. Milwaukee Brewers, they're leading it in the clubhouse right now as far as the best record in baseball, 76-44, 8 games up on the Cubs. Cubs are at about a 96.3% chance, though, to make the wild card. So, that's looking pretty good. Reds, not too far back, not far back enough to be considered out in the Central. But then in the West, you got the two teams that have seemingly dominated that league a bit, the Padres and the Dodgers. The Padres are 1 game up on the Dodgers. Both teams have great chances of making the playoffs at 98 and 99% respectively. So that kind of gives you a look at Major League Baseball. And then if we're looking at the football schedule, there are a couple games if you're interested in watching preseason boring football. You got the Titans at the Dirty Bird, 6 o'clock today. NFL Network. You can get you a $13 ticket if you're over there in the Atlanta area.
$13.
Yeah, so
there we go.
Very affordable there. Preseason's what I could afford. The ticket's probably about as expensive as the beer and the hot dog. You come out of there with $13.
$13. I think the ticket's cheaper than the beer and the hot dog.
Yeah, I think if I came out of there at $50 in the hole, I'd be like, man, I just won.
We took the kids to a Phillies game, and we were in New Jersey, which was a lot of fun. Yeah, we're in South Jersey, very close to Philadelphia, about an hour over there, and yeah, I can confirm it was a good bit more than $13.
Yes. The Kansas City Chiefs at the Seattle Seahawks, 9 o'clock. Be kind of a late game, so if you're up and about and come in from eating dinner, you catch that one at 9 o'clock on the NFL Network. If you happen to be in Seattle and you want to go to the game, it is $42 right now.
All right.
And a full lineup on Saturday and Sunday. Too many games really to kind of go through. But the Monday game, Cincinnati at Washington, 7 o'clock. So that'll be an ESPN game. Most of these others are all over the NFL Network. The only other game that really stands out to me, and it is a Fox game, in case some of you do not have the NFL Network, it will be Buffalo at Chicago tomorrow, 7 o'clock. And then Jacksonville at New Orleans is a lunchtime game tomorrow. $8. $8, Lucian, gets you in the Superdome tomorrow for the Jacksonville at New Orleans game. That is the lowest ticket price I have seen.
That's extraordinary.
There are quite a few affordable ball games, though, some as low as $20 and $13. But, yes, the $8 ticket to Sousa's Superdome in New Orleans, that gives you money to invest in the casino. Which they will take gladly.
I think they probably have some concessions they'll make some money off of.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, those the swag and memorabilia,
totally,
and T-shirts and $12 Coca-Colas or more, whatever it may be. I always love going to the Superdome. I know it's an old facility, but it doesn't matter what I've been there for. I played baseball there in college in the Bush Challenge when I was at Auburn. That was really fun. I've been to several games, a couple pro games there, concert. I mean, it's just such a unique venue.
It is, and it's nice that it's so close.
Yeah. I mean, you think of the age of that building, too. I mean, how many domes are still that were built in that era are still in such great shape or have been renovated several times over again to continue making it, one of those kind of key places. People know it. You know the Superdome. It would be
That's true.
A bad idea to me to ever get rid of it. You may have to remodel it and do some different things, but think about what it went through in Katrina and all.
Yeah, that's a great
point. You sit here and look at this beautiful. See it from anywhere too. I mean, it stands out.
Well, and it's sort of how you know you've made it to New Orleans when you're driving down from Jacksonville.
There it is. There's get off here.
Here we are. Exactly.
Get off here. You see Xavier University over to your right. Isn't that the one?
Yeah, that's right.
And then you get off right there. We're here.
I might have to think about going down for a preseason game next year.
Yeah, if you're $13 and $8, you can take your extended family and be fine.
Right, that's right. Yeah. Well, I just think with how much my oldest loves football, that'd be a fun. He will enjoy watching a preseason game and not complain that it's he's not seeing the stars.
Football, man.
Right.
And how is he doing? I was hoping
he's doing well.
Give me some updates on the Big L.
He's doing well.
School started for him. Obviously,
he's back in school.
What grade is young Buck in now?
He is in 4th grade now.
Fourth grade.
Yeah. I mean, that's still young, but it's amazing.
He'll be a 9th grader before you know it.
It is such a cliche, but it is so true. It goes like that. But they're all doing great. So.
Well, you think about it, like I know we're going to go to a break, but I love it's so fun at that age from like 4th, 5th grade to about 8th or 9th. So much changes.
Yes.
The voice, the body, everything. I mean, it's just amazing watching. So, yeah, give it a couple years, he'll be taller than you.
No doubt about it. Y'all, this is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have an update from the Mississippi Lottery coming up next.
And in that southern moonlight, she sang the song so well.
from the Venable Glass.
No filibuster. Just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
It's time for the Mississippi Lottery Corporation update. Lotto America had no jackpot winner. The estimated jackpot for tomorrow, Saturday, August 16th, is $2.15 million. That'll have an estimated cash value of $980,000. The numbers from Wednesday, August 13th, were 17, 23, 27, 45, and 52. The star ball was 3, and the all-star bonus multiplier was also 3.
Powerball's getting sweet.
I'm telling you.
$565 million. You even got a drawing on my birthday.
There we go.
I might have to buy a ticket.
Yeah, you
for
better
that
buy
one.
a ticket, my
It's
man.
one of those days. Everybody out there on the 16th, y'all don't buy tickets. Leave that up to me. I got you covered. You get to take home $258 million before you pay taxes. So
Whew.
I could live with that, Lou.
Yeah, even after taxes, I think you can probably make it work.
I may just jump the border. Go to like one of those non-extradition countries. Keep the $250 million. Nah, I wouldn't do that. I'll pay my taxes. I'm a taxpayer, baby.
You should always pay your taxes, but if you can't figure out how to swing it with $250 million, you got bigger problems.
Double play was Wednesday, August the 13th. So that was 29, 33, 41, 50, and 54, and you had a Powerball of 23. So.
Mega Millions, there's no jackpot winner. The jackpot for tonight is $198 million. It's got an estimated cash value of $89.3 million.
You have to buy a ticket for that one too.
Well, it cracks me up when folks say, "Well, I don't really buy lottery tickets until it gets up above $100 million." And I'm thinking, man, you're doing all right. If it's not worth it.
Richard and Scott Sands are like that. They're like, yeah, if it's not $300 million, I'm not wasting my time. It's like, well, when you got 2 personal planes and a fleet of F-150s, yeah, you can do that.
Sure. But
I need it now.
$5 million would change the way I live right now. I don't have to get to $200 million for it to change.
Yeah, you would. That would pay for a lot of good stuff.
Indeed,
you can go in and pay for that. You can call up old David McRae and get the college paid for the whole crew.
That's a very good point.
And start thinking about maybe having more kids. Your wife would be like, no, we're almost there.
That might take $200 million.
Yeah.
The numbers from Tuesday, August 12th, were 1, 8, 31, 56, 67, with a mega ball of 23.
Well, you had the cash 3 and cash 4. The midday 179. The evening 608. The $5,000 prize in the midday 4204. The evening numbers were 9828. Fireball of 3 and a cash pop of 4 for the midday on Thursday. The evening fireball of 1 with a cash pop of 14.
And all of these numbers are unofficial until they're certified by the Mississippi Lottery Corporation. The lottery announced its July transfer to the state. It's kicking off fiscal year 26 with a huge transfer, sending more than $8.63 million for its July transfer to the state treasury. That's the first transfer of the fiscal year, and it follows $113 million being transferred to the state in the last fiscal year. Since launching, the lottery's provided a combined $700 million for Mississippi, $479 million to repair and improve our roads and bridges, and $221 million to strengthen education. Well,
that's always good.
I'm telling you, the Powerball jackpot has climbed to an estimated $565 million, with over $250 million cash value for Saturday's drawing. Mississippi Lottery has had 5 $50,000 winners in the last 30 days, and 4 of those 5 multiplied their prizes to 6 figures by adding Power Play. Powerball tickets are just $2, with Power Play available for $1 to multiply non-jackpot wins. Add the $1 double play option for a chance at a second drawing with a $10 million jackpot. See if you're our next big Powerball winner. Purchase your tickets now for Saturday.
Well, we had a few winners. This is one of the more abbreviated ones. As you just read, we've had a lot of big numbers in there in the last month, 50s and 100s all over the place, and we had some of the little ones too. They count. Tupelo man won $845 on a ticket from Tony's Quick Mart in New Albany, and an Aberdeen woman won $1,350 on a ticket purchased at the Shell 45 in Aberdeen. Canton woman $2,600 richer. The Z Mini Mart in Canton, and players from Hermanville and Florence each won $2,700 on tickets from Food Mart in Vicksburg, and the 7250 Quick Trip in Richland, Mississippi.
2 Jackson women each won $1,000 on Cash Pop tickets from Sunrise Foods in Ridgeland and Raceway 6851 in Pearl. A McCool woman won $2,500 on a ticket from Zippin' 2 in Ackerman.
And McCool, that just sounds like a cool name to have as your hometown. Yeah, where are you from? I'm from McCool.
McCool,
yeah.
Amen.
That's pretty cool. Match 5 winners had players from Natchez, Van Cleve, Jackson, Hernando, and Brandon. Each won $800, and a pedal man won $1,000 on a ticket from the Murphy Oil and Pedal.
Players from New Albany, Tupelo, Philadelphia, Starkville each won $1,000 on tickets from Eagle Fast Stop number 2, J&G One Stop, Quick number 205, and Down the Hatch. A Shannon woman won $10,000 on a ticket from Sprint Mart number 5 in Nettleton. And those are just a few happy players who have won money while contributing to road and bridge work in the state of Mississippi. Remember, you can't win if you don't play, and play responsibly. Y'all, that's been the update on the Mississippi Lottery. Stick with us for more after this. Coming up next is Fox News, followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Pour yourself a cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Well, y'all, that's hour 1 in the books here on Mornings with Richard Cross. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on SuperTalk Mississippi. And this hour of Mornings is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you are not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services come in. They can provide a full range of employer services plus a custom plan that fits you. Call today at 601-206-7966 or go to mwgemployerservices.com. Well, stick with us today. We got a great show coming up. We'll have with us in the 7:20 hour Speaker Jason White, talking a little bit about what he's working on over the course of the next few months, headed up to January's beginning of the legislative session. Lars Larson, a nationally syndicated host who you can hear on SuperTalk every night from 6 to 9 o'clock, will be with us at 8 o'clock. And then Phil Donlon of Chicago Fire will be with us in the 8:35 block to talk a little bit about the work he's doing on the coast for children's cancer. So it is a good day. Begin your pre-weekend here with us on SuperTalk. Well, it's going to be interesting to have a conversation with the speaker,
J-Dog.
I mean, it's tough to believe that we are almost
back around.
Yeah. I mean, we got essentially 3.5 months, and the legislature's going to be here.
Well, and think of, the reality is we're even talking about special sessions still.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the governor on and had a great conversation with him. Thanks for the great. I mean, we had 3 segments. It's always nice to have the gov come in because he's very articulate. And when pressed on the special session, he's like, I'm not going to rule anything out. But there's still some big issues that are on the table.
Oh, no doubt.
Things that have kind of continued to be punted. Maybe we say kick the can down the road a little. I'm anxious to see as we start coming into midterms in the federal side, as we got this session coming, how do we position with, say, Medicaid expansion and school choice and some of these issues that we saw that did not get solved and continue to get those questions from listeners, why not this and why not that? Well, we're about to find out.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I'll say this again when he's with us, but if you want to be part of that conversation, if you got questions for the speaker, send us a text at the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395, and we'll get a sense, Lance, of what the real issues are going to be heading into the session. And I think you're absolutely right. The two you mentioned are big questions. What the state is going to do with Medicaid. I think they've sort of held off on. There's a push for expansion. I think they've held off because they're waiting to see what's going to be done at the federal level with Medicaid. But my sense is school choice is going to be one of these issues that just dominates the session in the way that taxes dominated the session previously.
Well, and then you have the special projects considerations, and where we had, there wasn't any, and the speaker was very, in depth in that last time he was here. The mindset between the Senate and the House, how that all boiled down. I think that's going to be a very fun and interesting part of this.
I agree.
And how we spend the money. And I think a lot of folks are saying, well, we have all this money, we need to spend it. And then you got a lot of folks saying, hey, we got this money, we need to be careful. So you always have that juggling act here as we come into this special mindset of how do we spend all this money? What are we going to do with it?
And I worked for Governor Barber and Governor Bryant, have done a lot of budget work over the years, and it's almost easier to put the budgets together in the years where there's not much money because people expect to get cut. Now, I'm not saying those cuts aren't real. I'm not saying those cuts don't hurt. Oftentimes they do. But from the appropriator and the budget standpoint, it's kind of easier to put it together when there's not boatloads of money sitting around. When there is all that money,
everybody's in line.
Everybody's in line for it, and there's a constant pull between do you spend more on services? How do you get this money back to the taxpayer? Because at the end of the day, it's the taxpayer's money, not the government's money.
I have a question for you. Because we continue hearing and having great conversations about workforce development in the state, and I believe that we're doing a wonderful job, but I've gone through the data a good bit, and I would love to see our legislative geniuses and hard workers there looking at this from instead of the 30,000-foot view, like somebody lost their wallet at the fair, so you bring in a helicopter and you just throw a bunch of money and everybody grabs it. I think that we have issues. I would love to see us be able to focus a little bit more down into the areas specifically where we have higher unemployment, lower workforce development, and figuring out maybe, what is causing some of this, and is there direct solutions? Because if we look at some of the U.S. aid monies and some of these things that kind of float in the soft monies, it'd be really nice to know that we can be accountable, that we can take this and have results-oriented decisions and outcomes, and hopefully solve some issues here rather than going, hey, let's keep talking about it.
Yeah, no, well, and I think the governor has done a good job of sort of reorganizing, refocusing the State Workforce Investment Board, and Patrick Sullivan, who chairs that, he did a great job. And he's doing a good job in that role. But I agree.
It seems like a big mountain, though, that we're climbing.
Absolutely.
Because there are issues. But as a state as a whole, our unemployment is, I would say, if you take out some key areas that have obvious issues in the Mississippi area, if you take those out, our unemployment would be lower than the national average. When you add in those 8s and 9s, the unemployment levels in certain areas, and we kind of bump up to where we're at the national average. So it seems like there is a lot of the workforce is doing very well in Mississippi, but yet it's in some areas we're just way behind, and that kind of waters everything down a little.
Well, and that's the questions that get asked when you're negotiating, and obviously you've had Bill Cork, you've had the governor, but that is one of the questions that almost always got asked, and I've been out of that role for a decade now. But when I was Phil's chief of staff, Governor Bryant's chief of staff, that was one of the questions that was always asked: is can you supply enough qualified workers for the facility? Who's in this labor shed? Are there enough of them who are going to be adequately trained or trainable for these jobs? And so you're right. I mean, that's education, however you want to, and that's ultimately an education adjacent or an education direct role that has a direct effect on our ability to keep recruiting high-paying jobs into the state and to get people working in those areas.
I'm also interested in the debate and argument over Chinese farmland and Chinese, investment in the state. How are we going to? I know that the impetus is somewhat like, hey, we don't need to be doing this. We need to, China doesn't need to be owning our farmland and things of that nature. I know there was some conversation and discussion and moving in the direction where we're going to have to figure out a way to back out of some of this stuff. And I find that to be fascinating, spending 16 years in finance. Like, how do you divest? How do you get somebody to move on down the road that you don't want as your partner anymore.
Right.
That one's going to be a unique debate, I think. I'm curious how we're going to walk that walk.
And I think, and somebody I'm sure will text us and let us know, but I want to say Commissioner Gibson has a task force that's looking at foreign ownership of land that I assume is eventually going to come back with a legislative proposal.
Yeah, and then you got the commissioner is announced for
governor.
So I think that, again, him in that role where you have, there's obviously a lot of investment money that comes in. How do you back out of that? A guy that's going to be running for governor in charge of agriculture who's done a phenomenal job. That's going to be a fun one. I really think that's that debate. I don't know how we're going to solve that, but it seems to be one without an obvious answer.
I agree.
And the brain power, they're going to show what they got. So, this great group of leaders we have, those are one of those issues I think will be fun to watch them work through.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it is a tough one. I mean, you've seen the Soviets used to do it, and the Russians do still. The Chinese do it as well. They've sort of figured out ways to use the great parts of America against us, right? I mean, the freedoms that make America so wonderful are also the sort of thing these foreign powers can come in and sort of abuse. And so that'll be it'll be interesting to see how we resolve that in a way that is in the best interest of the state, the best interest of the country, and also but also respects sort of our traditional concept of how you own property and who can own property and that sort of thing.
Well, and Thomas always has some interesting perspectives, and this is one that I'm curious, honestly.
Yeah. If
China's willing to pay me 2 times as much as my neighbor for my land, who is the government to tell me to sell it at a loss?
I think he makes a perfectly reasonable point.
That's the debate I'm interested in right there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting one for just the reason you said. I mean, it's not obvious. I mean, clearly we don't want the Chinese Communist Party owning a boatload of land we use to feed Americans in the U.S. At the same time, he's right. We don't want the government coming in and saying and controlling who you can and can't sell your land to. So there's a real conflict there. It's going to be interesting to see how that gets worked out.
Well, and we have a good one here because as we get the speaker on, please ask the speaker when he plans on streaming committee meetings like the Senate. We've had a couple of those. They love to hear. The House is fun to watch, right? So.
The House, I may lead with that one. That's a very good question. Y'all, this is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have Speaker Jason White coming up next.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
Shaping Mississippi politics each morning. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard Cross here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. With us in studio is the Speaker of the Mississippi House of Representatives. Mr. Speaker, thanks for being here.
Good morning, Lucian. Good to be with you on this foggy, hot Friday.
It's warm out there, that's for sure.
Warm. It is warm.
Well, are y'all, I recognize, I don't know that everybody does, that just because the legislature's not in session, the work doesn't really stop for y'all.
The work doesn't really stop. I probably underestimated that part of the job, if you will. When I was not in this role, I would unplug a little bit when we were out of session and
do your paying job,
do my real job, and that place is on fire these days.
I can imagine.
But yeah, we've been hard at work. We maybe took a week off and then got back at it when it comes to getting ready for 2026 and. We were talking in the office last week about, somebody said something about, it's only like really 4 months. We were like, oh man,
I know.
It's like it's already here. But
it's the midpoint of August, so we're
right.
Like 3.5 months.
That's
now.
right. Don't remind us, Lucian. but we have, maybe found a little bit of success or a recipe for what works good for us in the House, and that is, it's better to take that time in the off season where you can really dig in, especially on a big topic, and kind of I don't know if get everybody on the right page is the right word, but get everybody in the room and let's figure out the direction we want to go on big issues so that when January does get here, we kind of have a sense of, everybody's had their seat at the table, everybody's gotten to have their say, and we kind of maybe there's some consensus around direction we want to go on big issues. Like 2 years ago, it was that student funding formula. We spent a ton of time on that, out of session, getting ready, and then those early days of session. And then this past year, we spent the whole off season on tax reform. And everybody was shocked when we came out with a bill the second week of January, and we're like, well, we've been working on this since June.
Right.
Like to us, it was old hat. But anyway, that's kind of the direction we're going with this idea and mantra around education freedom and reform and kind of next steps.
Well, I think y'all are smart to do that. I mean, I saw what you did last year with the big summit on tax reform. I mean, we all knew it was going to be a big topic, but it seems to me if you're going to do big things, you can't just show up in January and start taking people's temperature and think you're going to make meaningful change.
That's right. Not when you're going to do, like in any of those four things that were involved in House Bill 1, whether you're talking about personal income tax or the grocery tax or PERS, or any of that, like, the gas tax and the adjustment of that with the infrastructure, any of those four topics would have been enough for a session, or maybe even a 4-year term, and all that fighting and all of that, and to have them all in one bill, it took something like off-season work, select committee, meeting with all interested parties and stakeholders, even the folks who didn't want to go there. I think that process makes it better legislation overall.
I think that's right. And I'll also say kudos to y'all for trying to do big things. I mean, it's easy, and I think back to the 2013 reforms, you can kind of come in and do some high-level, easy things that are great to put on a push card, but don't really move the needle at all. But look at these 10 things we did. And I think y'all are to be commended for really trying to move the needle and not just get
we
the
hadn't
box check.
Purposely stayed away from those hot button red meat issues that get lots of clicks on Facebook and Twitter, but really don't move that needle you're talking about. We hadn't purposely stayed away from them, but we have purposely and intentionally spent our time on what we called or thought were the big issues, the things that folks, when they get up in the morning or when they're riding down the road, windshield time, what they're thinking about in their own businesses and in their own families and homes and communities, those kind of things, and that's where we are on this education deal now.
Yeah, so walk us through that a little bit. I mean, I realize things are still taking shape. You've got to get the support of your caucus, but how are you envisioning the education package coming out of the House looking this year?
At this past session, we passed several bills. I've heard somebody say piecemeal. They were just separate bills on separate issues in the education reform space. Things like what we call portability, the ability for families to be able to have their kids transfer from one public school district to another, and the home school district not be able to hold them against their will. In other words, they don't have to obtain that release from their home school district to move to another public school district. That portability piece, what we called and it's affectionately known as the Tim Tebow Act, which allows homeschool kids to compete and participate in extracurricular activities in their local school district as long as they meet all other requirements. Most other states are doing that. We should be able to do that. We need some real charter school reform and cleanup. And it's that issue from 2012 and 13 to now is a good example for me of we did so much in the charter school legislation, and that was so outside the box at the time. We might have given a little too much to get a product back then, and I think those things have always kind of hamstrung those programs because of it. So we're going to try to really look at that and what can we do to make it better and more consumable by folks who are want to be in that space. We've limited it to only DNF districts, which makes that all of a sudden look like it's a punishment if a charter school comes to your area, and it shouldn't be about that. And so we're going to look close at that, how we authorize them, how they're set up, and where they can go. And then ultimately, we're going to talk a lot about, and we want to expand on our reading initiative from third grade reading gate and take that to 4th through 8th grade. And there's some great programs out there. And MDE, we've been working close with them. And Cole Butler in our office runs Point on Education, and he is just outstanding. And by the way, he was homeschooled, but that's I digress. But he's super sharp, and we're glad to have him in our office. And he has worked really close with MDE. They're working on a math initiative and a reading initiative, literacy initiative for middle schoolers, 4th through 8th grade, that could be implemented. It's kind of an expansion of what we've done with third grade reading gate. So we're excited about that. And our accountability model, the way we look at that, so there's all these pieces to this big package we're talking about, but they would center around what I call education freedom or school choice. I'm not afraid to say the word. I'm on record multiple times being for it. Now, I've got to figure out what that looks like for our state. For my Republican caucus, ultimately the legislature, my job will be finding that sweet spot that we can get some traction with the Senate. But it is very good to not only have the governor on board here, but have the president of the United States saying, I am watching Mississippi. He invited the Republican caucus to the White House about 3 weeks ago. About 25 of my House members went. About 6 or 8 state senators went. And it was a very frank conversation with his Secretary of Education about we're now surrounded by all our sister states in the school choice space, where we can go with that.
Right.
He's going to help. He's committed to that. He's reminded everybody it's in our Republican Party platform, and we're going to see where we can get with that.
And has been for a long time. I mean, it's not like this is some new idea that
That's
people
right.
just start kicking around.
That's right. And some kind of way, we've gotten the argument, like, if you approach it from the standpoint of the child and what is best for the child and what is best for families, it's so easy to get there. If you start it by, well, what might happen, what are the consequences for this school or that school? That's not what that's
right.
about. Or it's supposed to be about educating the individual child.
We need to be funding students, not systems, and that's the problem.
Our new formula does that, and that was a great first step. And so now you can take that and extrapolate that out, and with these figures assigned to kids, know what it takes to educate a child in our state in different regions of the state, and try to make that part of this, if you will.
Do you? I mean, what is the likelihood we see some sort of non-public school choice, the scholarship programs?
I think that's the heart of where we're going.
Okay.
For some kids in certain regions of the state, there is no good public school option. Even if the public school they're assigned to would release them, there's not one within 30 miles.
Can go.
But again, for some families, we don't have to break it down by this family or that family. Within some families, and we have great examples that we're going to be introducing to policymakers and to the state. They might have 3 kids. 2 of them are thriving in their local public school, but one of their kids needs something different.
Right.
And so it's about the individual student. And for some reason, we've checked parents' authority on that. Parents know what's best for their kids. Nobody argues that on either side of the aisle.
Right.
Any region of our state, everybody agrees. Parents know what's best for their kids. We entrust them to do everything else when it comes to that child. But we check their authority at the door when it comes to their education, which probably might be the most important thing.
How much of that, and we're coming up against the break, you got time to stick with us? I want to keep exploring this. Y'all, stick with us. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. We'll have more with Speaker Jason White after this break.
I always do. How was I to know she was with the Russians too? I was gambling in Havana. I took a little risk. Send lawyers, guns, and money. Dad, get me out of this. Ha!
Segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Mornings with Richard Cross, here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
What else?
And always on the SuperTalk app.
Happy Friday, everybody. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on SuperTalk, Mississippi. We've got with us the Speaker of the Mississippi House of Representatives. Speaker, we were talking a little bit about this off the air. You think about school choice. To my mind, it's almost I don't know if civil rights, but it's a fundamental fairness issue, because I think about our family. Our public school district's not a great fit for our kids. I'm able to pay for a private school for them to go to school. We could move to a house in a different district if we decided the public schools in a different district were better. But that's not an option. Not even most Mississippians.
It's not an option for the vast majority of Mississippians. A little over a fourth of our K-12 students in our state are at 100% of federal poverty level or below.
Right.
A full fourth. You start talking about 85% of them are within 300% federal poverty level. Family of four, less than 85, 90,000. Like, it's not an option. And I'm not for hollowing out regions of our state. I hear people say that all the time. Well, they just need to pick up and move and buy a house in a good school district. I don't know if that's what it's about. People love their communities. They love that sense of home and all these other things. We just got to get this part of the equation right. I think it centers. We can start from a place of, we already have an ESA program for kids with special needs. We want to phase this in over a 3 to 5 year period and start with, in addition to kids with special needs, expand that ESA program in a choice program to include maybe kids that are in custody of the state of Mississippi in foster homes. Certainly those kids have bounced around enough to, those foster parents in the state would have a best idea of what's best for certainly those kids who have been in some very tough situations. And then in addition to that, our first responders and our law enforcement and firemen, those kind of things as a recruiting tool, number one. But number two, those ladies and gentlemen tend to move around with different departments and where they're needed and plugged in. And this would give them that space as well. And our military, all active military, give them that spot. And then in addition to those people having true school choice, public or private, maybe kids up to 100% of the federal poverty level. And let's start there. Mm-hmm. Let's start there. And then expand it over time, increase that maybe to 100 to 200% federal poverty level. The federal program that was in One Big Beautiful Bill is for kids up to 300% of the federal poverty level. So that would be a goal to get us there, maybe over a 3 or 5 year period, to get us in that same space. We currently have about 430,000 kids in public schools in Mississippi. We already have almost 50,000 in some sort of private school or charter school or homeschool type setting. So we're less than 500,000 kids, but we already have about 50,000. But those people have exercised the choice with their pocketbook, as you say. This is about finding options for these other kids that are trapped. Not only, and the conversation has always centered around, well, if we do it, we're just going to do it in failing school districts. Well, that's really not what this should be about. This should be about the individual student and parents and them making the decision for their kid. It shouldn't be about punishing a school district. Our public schools have done great lately. And every politician worth their salt is running around claiming credit for it. We were talking about being at out-of-state conferences, legislative conferences here off the air. Everybody now actually wants to talk to folks from Mississippi,
right? And
that has not always been the case. Usually we're hoping nobody asks us a question, but now it's like, hey, you look up the discussion centers around what's going on in our state, either on the economic front or on the education front. So this isn't about throwing shade at our public schools. They've done great,
absolutely.
And the take rate for school choice in almost all states is 6-7%, where they have universal school choice. It's less than 10%. This isn't going to be some mass exit from our community public schools, but it gives parents options, and that's what it should be about. And now I would remind everybody, we are surrounded. Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama all have universal school choice. A red state like Mississippi, we should be able to play in that space. And as I was saying, the Trump administration is going to be involved in this. we'll see where we get. We're excited about the opportunities. We're also going to look at K4 and try to beef up our K4 programs. That's going to be a part of this education package. The data shows the more kids we can get in that space, and we're touching a lot of kids either through our early learning collaboratives that have been uber successful. We just hadn't put a lot of money in that space. I would like to expand those or see what we can do and kind of extrapolate that and make that program broader and more robust. How can they partner with our Head Starts throughout the state, which between the two of those programs is touching a lot of kids, several thousand. Those need to be models that we could get in these other pockets where we don't have anything. And thinking about daycare in general. As employers, MEC has long sought a way to incentivize or find a way. That is one of the huge problems in our labor participation rates, and certainly our unemployment is low. But child care is an issue for employers and for workers in our state. So we're going to look at that, maybe incentivize employers to get in that game a little bit, either through a corporate tax credit or a way to match a dollar for dollar or do a 50-50 there as we look at K4 and child care and even after school. Our Boys and Girls Clubs and even our Children's Museum here is doing an incredible job in some after school programs. How can we expand that as part of this choice program going forward, even to the point of tutoring? Like, there are lots of things we can do. Homeschool, we need to figure out a way to help fund those students as well. Now, it won't be at the same robust level that we're funding students in K-12 at average student cost of $8,000, $10,000, $12,000. But what most states have done is $2,000 per pupil in a homeschool setting, and $4,000 is the cap for a family. We're going to be looking at that really closely as part of this deal. We think there's something in this package for everybody. Yeah. It's going to touch so many Mississippians, and it's going to be a lot of interest. It's going to be hot because of our state's complicated past when it came to public schools and all of that. But it's 50 years ago. We should be able to move past that and have real conversations about what is best for our state.
Yeah, I think that's right. Few people on the C Spire text line are asking about the income limits and asking why not go ahead and make everybody eligible for some sort of school choice.
Say that again. My members are blowing up my phone here.
I imagine you're getting some feedback.
They want me to remind you that we have the lowest gas prices in the nation.
Well, good job.
Because there was some heat about the infrastructure package of House Bill 1, and there was a statistics came out last week, and we are still the lowest gas prices in the nation, and we are finally righting the ship in our infrastructure space at MDOT to fix our roads and bridges. So there it is, guys. Y'all heard it.
A lot of people are coming in on the C Spire text line, and if you've got questions for the speaker, you can send us a text at 601-879-4395 and asking. The question is why the private school choice piece of this is income limited as opposed to letting everybody benefit.
I would like for it not to be, but it does come at a cost.
Right.
So we've got to figure out what we can afford. We're currently spending a little over $3 billion of our $7 billion state budget on K-12 public education. There are 50,000 kids already in private school. The majority of those kids are going to be above that 300% federal poverty level. I think at final phase in that final year, I think everybody does come in a universal setting. Now there'll either have to be a cap on the number per child or a cap on the overall spend, because there is a limit out there somewhere.
Right.
We only have X amount of taxpayer dollars, and kids that are already in private school, those will be new expenses. So in other words, if you just added the 50,000 kids in private school today, let's just take a number of $8,000 average, or I think the average cost of an independent school in our state is about $5,500. That's still $250 to $300 million new dollars. That would be tough for the state to absorb, especially right off the bat. That's why I'm saying we're looking at a 3 to 5 year phase in that leads to universal choice for everybody, and not based on income limits. But I think you got to start somewhere, and just like Congress's One Big Beautiful Bill started with 300% of federal poverty level, I think we've got to take this. We had a lot of people say, why are y'all eliminating the income tax? And then they said, why are you taking 13 years? And then we finally passed the bill. They're like, why didn't you just do it? Well, because it's a little over $2 billion of our $7 billion budget. We didn't get in this hole overnight. We won't get out overnight. And so I think it's best to take a measured approach here. And there is this thing, there's this other little tricky thing at the Capitol called getting the votes.
Well, I was going to say, it's different if you're the philosopher king versus having to get a majority or 3/5 vote to actually make it pass.
That's right.
You got time for one final segment with us, y'all?
We're yours.
Stick with us. We've got Speaker Jason White. We'll cover some non-education issues in the final few minutes that we've got.
From the Venable Glass.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Brush your hair back from your eyes. Take you down, let the river flow. Sometimes they're gonna walk the street.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on SuperTalk. Got a final segment here with Speaker Jason White. Lots of questions in on the C Spire text line. One of them that came in before you got here, Speaker, is what are the prospects of the House putting on the internet committee meetings, the videos of committee meetings?
I tell people all the time they think they want to see all that. I don't know that they really do. I don't know. They're open public meetings, and we have had some that have been broadcast, but certainly our debates on the House floor are that way. I want to promote openness and dialogue in every way that I can among our House members as they debate and flesh out legislation. And I appreciate your listener's question. I just don't know. That has not been number one priority on my when we get down to that on the list, we'll be doing pretty good, because that just hadn't been my number one thing. And they are open to the public, and we have lots of folks that do come and watch. And some even get to participate, depending on the hearing and what's going on from the general public. But we'll see where we get on that. The lieutenant governor's been big on that, and then when we got in some pointed debates, all of a sudden the cameras didn't work. So I don't know. We'll figure that out as we move forward. That has not been a priority of mine.
Yeah.
Certainly our House debates are fully public, not only for the public to come and participate to watch personally, but they're online, and I think that's where you find.
Well, and having it on YouTube is it's really convenient that it's on that platform. You're not having to go download
folks can access
an app to try to do it. A couple questions about Mississippi School for Math and Science. Are y'all? What's going on at MSMS?
They are asking for some resources. We have starved that school. I can point the finger at myself as well as anybody else. We have not supported them with the resources that they should have. If they're going to be our gem and our shining example of our best and brightest at our Mississippi School for Math and Science, then we should support it in a robust way. Now, there are issues and things going on at MUW, from a name change to direction and what they look like going forward. And I mean, I'm not unveiling something that folks don't already know. There's been lots of discussions there surrounding MUW. And, of course, the School for Math and Science is located on that campus. I've just been saying, if we're going to have it, we need to support it in a more robust way and really make it one of our shining stars, and not just see what's left after all the other budgets are done and how much money we might throw at it, so to speak. And that's kind of what's been done. It has been neglected. We need to figure that out going forward. And you're going to see discussions about that as we look at facilities not only there for School for Math and Science. Part of this new education freedom package, we want to have at least 2 more, and I would love to have 4 more public schools located on university campuses in our state. Whether that is a public-private partnership through a charter, or whether those communities, for instance, at Delta State, we would love some sort of something that focuses on STEM there, take advantage of their aviation program, and have a campus there where public school kids can just choose that school if the parents are willing to get them there, and maybe it even has a boarding aspect, or maybe it doesn't. We've all of those conversations are taking place. Would love to have one maybe at Alcorn, maybe at Southwest Community College. Like, we're having preliminary conversations to figure out what that looks like as part of our reform and choice packages, giving them some real choices in maybe in areas that have been neglected a little bit. But certainly School for Math and Science is part of that conversation.
That makes a lot of sense. There's a question here, and we've got about a minute, so I'm hesitant to ask you this question. Where are we on PBM reform, and what are its prospects?
That's one of my big regrets from the session, is that we didn't get something across the finish line. Now.
And you essentially did, right? It was killed by a point of order?
It was killed by a point of order by, some folks who say they're advocating for independent pharmacists. Now, a large group of independent pharmacists asked for that transparency piece and want it. So it was kind of, threw me a curveball when others had it killed. But we'll live to fight another day. We have spent a lot of time this summer on that issue. My local independent pharmacist, that is my personal pharmacist, so I see him on a regular basis, and I tend to be taking more blood pressure pills these days. But so
Sure.
He takes care of me, but he is also on the board of pharmacy, and he's very plugged in and involved, and we're going to find something in that space. I just can't do it at the expense of Mississippians and taxpayers, and it just drive rates up. We've got to figure out a win-win. Nobody is for PBMs, but we are for Mississippians. We're for our independent pharmacists, and we're for our Mississippi businesses, and we're going to continue to work hard to find a win there in spite of all the rhetoric and maybe sometimes shouting that's going on.
Any final thoughts in our final 15 seconds here?
You're going to see your house continue to work hard. We're going to take up the big things and see where we get.
Well, thanks for taking the time to be with us, Speaker.
Enjoyed it.
You got a lot going on. Y'all, this has been Speaker Jason White. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Coming up next is Fox News, followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News.
From Sumner to Summit to Summerall, Richard has something for you. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi as we begin our third hour. Thank you for being with us. Great conversation there with Speaker Jason White, and a great conversation coming up right now. With us on the line is Lars Larson, nationally syndicated host, who you can hear every day on Super Talk from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Lars, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well, Lucian. Thanks for asking.
How is the Pacific Northwest these days?
Well, it's funny. It's usually hot this time of year, but we got a little rain overnight, so that's kind of a nice little break from it, but not terribly hot, although I'm surrounded by godless pagans who mostly hew to the Democrat Party, so you're constantly hearing, anytime it gets above about 75 degrees, they start running around in circles shouting, global warming, climate change, the world is coming to an end.
I'm sure.
But it's entertaining for somebody like me.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's my wife grew up outside of Tacoma, Washington, so I used to spend an awful lot of time out there. It's a beautiful part of the world, but maybe not the most beautiful politics.
I think Mark Twain used to say that France is a beautiful place. The problem is it's filled with French people, and the problem is the Northwest is a beautiful place, but is filled with liberal Democrats who make AOC look positively conservative.
Well, I tell you what, Donald Trump is sure blowing some people's brains up with what he's doing in D.C. right now. I mean, the Democrats they're just going crazy, it seems like.
Ain't it great? Because they've decided that everything Trump does, they have to do the opposite.
Right.
Now, when you're a kid, you know, if your little sister does something and you do the opposite, we understand that's kids. But when adults do it, imagine this. Donald Trump says D.C. has too much crime in it, and it does. And they say, whatever he says, we agree with the opposite. We think that D.C. is crime-free. And they run around saying that, and the American people are not stupid. They look at that and they say, what are you, crazy? No, you're not the number one murder city in America. You're number 4. But, hey, who's counting? I mean, and so they feel compelled to do the opposite of Donald Trump, even when the opposite leads them right off the edge of a cliff.
And you're seeing a lot, Lance sent me something earlier, but you're seeing a lot of these sort of anecdotal things on social media of people in D.C. who are probably not big Trump supporters, but who are celebrating the fact that there is a heightened police presence and that they feel safer in their hometown.
Well, isn't it amazing when some of the mainstream media, cartel media, decides to go out on the streets in D.C. and talk to average folks? And I saw a number of the interviews over the last several days, and all of those people, and many of them people of color, because D.C. is about 50% black, are saying, we want more security here. And so no matter what they're saying downtown, Muriel Bowser and that whole crowd down there who are unrepentantly to the left and who say, we don't want the federal government to do this. And yet the residents of D.C., they're the ones who are bearing the brunt of all this criminal activity, often violent activity. And they say, we like the enforcement of the laws. And see, this plays, it's funny because I saw Chris Matthews, who is not a conservative, the other day saying they've fallen into Donald Trump's trap. Donald Trump, because I think we realized some time ago, remember when they picked up that guy that the media all called a Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego
exactly.
Garcia, illegal alien in El Salvador, and they sent him home. And a lot of the media said, why, he's an American. No, he's an El Salvadoran. And the Democrats decided to make him their poster boy, and they went down to have margaritas with him while he was behind bars and all this. And you thought, these people pick all the wrong heroes. And that's okay. Let them do it, because I don't think that's going to sell very well to the American voter next fall.
You're right, but it goes back to exactly what you said at the beginning, Lars. It's no matter what Donald Trump says or does, they're going to do 180 degrees different. Even when he is deporting a violent criminal who's come in to the country, whose wife wanted a restraining order, who's clearly involved with gang activity, Trump's against him, so they got to be for him.
Well, and do you remember that Kilmar himself was stopped by the Tennessee State Patrol some time ago, and he had a van full of illegal aliens, and even the state cops in Tennessee, they said, this guy's trafficking human beings. So they called the Biden, at that time, the Biden FBI, and said, what do you want us to do with this guy? He's clearly trafficking people. They said, take a couple of pictures and let him go. And you think that was the response of our national government? I mean, the Democrat Party could not be more pro-human trafficking, pro-drug trafficking, pro-criminal. And I'm waiting for some of the people in the Republican Party to grow a spine and actually run some ads in which they say this other party, they stand for not America first, but America last. They stand for criminals. They stand for illegal aliens. They stand for everything that's wrong. Now, usually you kind of expect both parties to say the other guy is bad. But in this case, the Democrats are making the point for us. And I think that bodes well for the American public, because I think Republicans are going to continue to win elections. Let's get a bigger majority in the House and the Senate, which we should have had anyway if districting had been done right. And then you get Democrats like the Texas Democrats who run off to Illinois, one of the most gerrymandered states in America, except gerrymandered to benefit the Democrats.
Right.
And they start screaming and yelling about redistricting.
Well, and they've got such an ally in the cartel media, to use your words, because they don't tell the whole story. They're never going to tell you how badly gerrymandered Illinois is, or any number of other Democratic-run states. They're just going to tell you that this is the Republicans trying to cheat our democracy, ruin the democracy, and not have fair representation.
Well, maybe the cartel media, and I used to be a daily news reporter, and I kept my opinion out of my stories. And I've told people, they said, well, you're an opinion guy. And I said, go back and check the news stories I did. I never put my own opinion in those stories, not once. But imagine what happens when they start to realize if we continue to shade the news this way, we lose credibility. And I think, frankly, at the end of the day, while the media may, slant itself strongly toward the left in America, they also care a lot about their own credibility, because they understand that without credibility, you don't get paychecks. And so they say, if we're going to ruin our own credibility, we're going to tell everybody that Joe Biden is a perfectly competent adult who's capable of making decisions. And they know that the American people are seeing the opposite. The thing that kind of makes me sad is, do you know the count as of this week is that 7 different conflicts on this planet have been ended by the current president, who I voted for and who I have supported from the beginning. Now, wouldn't you think that'd be big news to say, even if they're not the big ones like Ukraine, but if you've got Azerbaijan and Armenia, if you've got Thailand, if you've got all these conflicts, and Donald Trump manages to bring them to an end, and today in Alaska, he's going to be trying to negotiate to bring the Ukraine war to an end, wouldn't you think that Americans would say, I don't care whether you like him or not, that's a good thing for America?
How much of that now do you think is because what's left of the legacy media is just trying to sell to their constituency? I mean, there are people who subscribe to the New York Times because they want to get told how bad the folks on the other side are and how righteous they are. And how much of it do you think is reporters who have their own personal political agenda, and they think this is a way of advancing it through narratives?
I think that's exactly it. Because, Lucian, when I was a reporter, I was registered as a Republican, because if I wasn't registered in one party or the other, I couldn't vote in the state I was in. It required party registration to be able to get a primary ballot, not the general election ballot. But other than that, I stayed out of involvement in politics. These days, reporters have gone in an entirely different direction. The problem is, though, when you say their constituency, most of the cartel legacy media are trying to cling to what they've got because they're losing market share. There are so many places for people to get news. Now, if you're looking to try to expand your market share, and you're let's say you're a hamburger stand, and every other hamburger stand, like all the franchise outfits, are selling a fish sandwich and a chicken sandwich, and they'll sell you all kinds of things. You say, no, all we're doing is hamburgers. If you do it well, like In-N-Out, maybe you can make a living at it. But when you say we're going to keep our market share narrow, you're almost like what Hollywood was. Hollywood, back before they came out with Hurt Locker and Saving Private Ryan, Hollywood did 9 different flops in a row. They were all about war. It was during the 90s and the early 2000s, and it mostly concerned itself with Iraq. So they did 9 anti-war movies, and they all flopped. And then you see Hurt Locker, patriotic, pro-military, Saving Private Ryan, patriotic, pro-military, and they were huge successes. Now, if you want to sit there and say our personal politics lead us to say everything about America is bad, go ahead. But you're going to be going to the poorhouse on that kind of agenda.
And thank goodness that that's still the case, that there's not this massive group out there that wants to be told how terrible America is, because it's false. But I'm glad that the majority of Americans, the overwhelming majority of Americans, are good patriotic Americans. Hey, Lars.
I don't know if you picked up on it, Lucian, but this last week the White House ordered a review of the America exhibit at the Smithsonian. I know, not the biggest news story in the world, but I haven't been back to the Smithsonian in a number of years. But apparently, if you walk through the American history exhibit at the Smithsonian,
hey, Lars,
it's a collection of anti-American propaganda.
We're coming up on a break. Can you stick with us? I want to talk some more about that after the break.
Yes, sir.
Hey, y'all stick with us. We'll have more with Lars Larson coming up after this.
From the Venable Glass Track.
Morning, partner. The sun is up, the coffee is on, and you're starting your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross, here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Hey, lady, got the love I need.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Hate to step on Led Zeppelin, but I don't want to waste any time. We've got with Lars Larson here. Lars, you were starting to say just before the break, you were talking about the Smithsonian's America exhibit and sort of the stuff that was in there, if you want to get back on that.
Can you imagine being in a family and you all sit down to reminisce and maybe pull out the family album, or these days pull out pad devices and start looking at photos? Can you imagine a family that sat down every day, and while every family knows it's imperfect, God made us to be imperfect, and for that we're all sinners and we all ask for his grace. But can you imagine a family that always sat down and every time they'd reminisce, they'd only reminisce about the horrible times and the bad things they did and the terrible mistakes they made? That seems to be the attitude of America's political left toward America and the American people. And I don't think most people like that. I mean, maybe if you're very hidebound and you're a true blue Democrat, you say, okay, America has its flaws. Yeah, I'd be the first to admit that America has its flaws, and we work hard to fix those flaws and not make those mistakes. But my goodness, you go to the Smithsonian and you want to give your kids a look at what American history is about, and all you can tell is all the horrible things that America was and is. I don't buy that.
I'm fascinated because I don't know another country in the world where a significant part of the political elite pushes propaganda that makes their country look bad. You're not going to see that in China. You're not going to see that in France. You're not going to see that in Japan. I mean, not to say there can't be acknowledgments about mistakes that every country has made, but I just don't know anywhere else where you have the political elite engaged in myth making about how terrible their country is. And I just wonder what drives that here.
I think the phenomenon might have something to do with feeling guilty, because I've known people who are wealthy before, and there are wealthy people who feel guilty about having their wealth. And I say, well, okay, I make a decent living, but I earn every dime of my paycheck, and I always have. I'm 50 years in radio now, and I every single dime I can say I earned that, and I can show you where it came from. I went on the radio, did a program, they sold advertising, the station kept most of it. I got a piece of it. I earned that. And most Americans can say that. Right. You go out and you do a job, you deliver value, and the value part of it comes back to you as a paycheck. But I think that there are people on the left who feel guilty that America has it so good. We are very blessed by God. I believe that we are a nation uniquely blessed by God. We're the only nation on earth that I know of that believes that all of our rights, they don't come from a piece of paper. They may be safeguarded from government interference by the Constitution, but the rights themselves come from God.
That's right.
And God blessed this country. Abundant energy, abundant land, people who are smart, unless they decide to hate the country with a passion. But I think they feel they've got it too good. And they want to tell everybody that the ones who are going socialist, especially the younger ones, they may realize we've got it really good, and there are people on this planet who don't have it as good as we do. Although I think America has done its best to try to show other countries this is the way to go. We're not going to tell you how to run your country. I think that's a mistake. But if we say, you do what we did and we'll be successful. And when there are people who feel guilty about having it so good, then all they want to do is tear it down. And I think you can see this in some of the young members of wealthy families who go completely the opposite direction because they feel badly. Mom or dad has millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, and they decide to go completely crazy. I'm willing to bet that if they were from a poor family and went out and started a business and managed to become successful, they wouldn't feel guilty at all. But when you inherit that wealth, then sometimes you end up feeling guilty. And instead of simply saying, I enjoy some great blessings, and I'm going to see if I can make sure I share them around, start more businesses, create more jobs, generate more wealth. Good. Make a product that people actually can use. Okay, good. But if you just feel, I grew up as a rich kid, I have it too good, everybody around me is poorer than I am, and so therefore I'm going to hate my family, hate mom and dad, I think that's the phenomenon we're seeing.
That's a really good theory. I've not heard it put that clearly because it is sort of a fascinating, strange thing about American political culture. Well, we've got President Trump and Vladimir Putin meeting today in Alaska. What do you see coming out of that meeting today?
Well, you know what I kind of wish they'd start with, Lucian? I wish they'd start with a land acknowledgement. And I know people are going to say, Lars, land acknowledgement, what are you talking about? I think Trump should start off by saying, I'd like to first acknowledge that this whole piece of property we're sitting on today used to belong to you guys till we bought it for a song. And thank you very much. $7 million back in the day would be worth about $129 million today, which sounds like a rounding error in the in a small department of the federal budget. But all that aside, I think Trump is right. He told a reporter the other day, they said, well, how are you going to know? He says, I'll know within a few minutes of sitting down with Vladimir Putin whether or not we can get a deal. And I think this president is doing something that most presidents don't. And that is, he has insisted that the two sit down with their translators only, and no, legion of staffers whispering in his ear and telling him what to say. I think Trump knows how to cut deals. And I think he's going to sit down with Putin. He knows Putin. And I know there are people who think he's a Putin stooge. He's not. He's not at all a Putin stooge. And he knows that he can sit down, and if he can get the right answers out of Putin, maybe we can bring this Ukraine war to an end, which I think we could all agree will be good for Ukraine, good for Russia, and good for the United States, because we can stop shoveling money into a giant money pit, something I've complained about since day one. So I think he can get a deal. But Trump says, I'll know within the first few minutes whether we're going to get to a deal or not.
I mean, he is a deal maker, and a real estate deal maker. And obviously this is a little more nuanced or different than a pure real estate deal, but it's similar.
War really about real estate?
Amen. No, that's right. That's exactly right. Do you think, I mean, obviously tough to know what's in Putin's head, but I mean, how do you think there's a chance that this could result in some sort of resolution or step towards resolution of the Ukraine war?
Hey, you can call me a happy warrior. I wake up every day and I don't care how bad it is. I just say, but we're going to make the best of it. Yeah, I think it can result in a deal. Will it? That all depends, I think, on Putin. But because at this point, the two players that are really in control of this are at the table. Zelensky is not. Zelensky is a stooge of oligarchs in Ukraine. And don't let anybody forget it. If you say, well, Putin is supported by oligarchs, well, so is Zelensky. So don't forget about that. But I think he can sit down and say, look, this thing's got to come to an end. And yes, we understand. You don't want Ukraine to be in NATO. We can make sure that doesn't happen. And I think that's a legitimate concern of Putin.
Yeah, and I've heard this from folks on the right who are Russia hawks, that even the anti-Putin folks in Russia are very uncomfortable with the idea of NATO coming immediately to the border of the country, and reasonably.
Well, can you imagine what we'd say if China cozied up to Mexico and said, hey, we'll do you some favors. We just want some CIA, in our case, CIA listening stations on the border of Russia, which we had in Ukraine. And we only found that out after the war started. Oh, by the way, the CIA has a bunch of listening stations on Russia's border. How would we have taken that if China cozied up to Mexico and then said, we'd like to put a bunch of intelligence gathering stations on the border with the United States? I think we just said, no, you're not. And I think Russia's saying the same thing.
Yeah, and it's a complicated issue, but I agree. It's a very rational concern that they have, and I can understand why that's something that they, at least for their own national interest, that why they're so hesitant. But it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of Alaska today.
Cross your fingers.
So we got about a minute left, Lars. Curious to know how you think the midterm elections end up going. I mean, historically, they don't go well for the party in power, but it doesn't feel like the Democrats have made the pivot that they really need to be successful.
If the Republicans actually capitalize on all the anti-America stuff that the Democrats have been doing, not wanting a closed-off border, not wanting crime to end, not wanting 100,000 fentanyl deaths a year to end, if they capitalize on that, I think the Republicans may surprise people. Every once in a while, midterm goes to the party in power, and you're right. Historically, they don't. I think in this case, if Americans look at what Trump has actually accomplished, it's going to go well, and we will get an even bigger margin in the House and the Senate. And then, of course, Trump will have 2 more years, and we'll be able to get things done. God forbid we should end up with a Democrat majority in either house, because then a lot of the good stuff just stops.
I think that's right. And I'm optimistic we'll be able to capitalize on that, and that the Democrats are going to make it easy for us.
I think so, too. And all this nonsense about redistricting, frankly, if Texas had been redistricted legitimately, they'd have about 5 more seats. in the House. The Republicans would have 5 more seats in the House of Representatives, and I think that's where we should be. And California threatening to redistrict the entire state against their own constitution to get even with Texas, that's crazy.
It is
Gavin
crazy.
Newsom's a nut.
Lars, thanks for taking the time to be with us. Appreciate you doing that. And everybody, make sure to listen to Lars every day on your SuperTalk stations from 6 to 9 p.m.
It's a pleasure, Lucian. Thank you.
This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us after this.
No matter where you're from, Abbeville, Batesville, DeIberville, or any other ville in the SIP, you're starting your day off right. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. With us on the line is Phil Donlon, who is part of the cast of Chicago Fire. Phil, how are you doing?
Oh, he's talking to you.
Oh, he's talking to me. Okay.
Sorry.
We only have one headphone.
What's going on? Yeah, we're a little technically challenged here in the booth today. We have one. We're going to do past the headphones. So.
That works. Well, I apologize, Phil. Let's start with this. Who is there with you? I'll let you do the intro.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got Rebecca here. She is, do you say it Morrow?
Morrow.
Morrow, Rebecca Morrow. And so she's with, I'm like watching myself here in the playback. Okay. She's a volunteer with St. Baldrick's. She's really my point person here.
Okay.
And so she's organized this Rock the Bald event that we're doing Sunday at Ground Zero. And she's also a survivor as well.
Wow.
She was diagnosed and she beat cancer, and she lost her hair twice when she was 12. So this Rock the Bald event is very personal for her.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, and she's the one who got me involved.
So, yeah, Phil, tell us a little bit about what the Rock the Bald event is and why it's important and how folks can get involved.
Yeah, well, St. Baldrick's is a purely donation, volunteer-driven organization, and it started like 25 years ago with a couple of people daring each other to shave their heads, and now it's like the number one. Whenever you talk about shaving heads and St. Baldrick's, everybody knows who they are. St. Baldrick's, when you donate to St. Baldrick's, they end up donating to like over 300 different groups that research childhood cancer.
Wow.
And try to put an end to childhood cancer. So when you're donating to St. Baldrick's, you're donating to like over 300 different organizations as well that they pick. So yeah, it's a pretty powerful group. And Sunday we're doing a Rock the Bald. We're shaving heads. It's a first responders event. So we've got the fire departments coming down, which is kind of where I come in, on Chicago Fire. I'll shave a couple of heads as well.
So that was going to be my next question to you, Phil. How did you get involved with this group and with this event?
Well, my buddy Jason Stearman, who has a sanctuary here in Biloxi, he called me up and he said, "Hey, I've got this person. She, was really into the idea of you, coming down and hosting the Rock the Bald event." And she talked to me for probably about a minute on the phone before I was like, "I'm in, just tell me when and where." For me, the reason it's important is an actor I really admired growing up was Paul Newman. He was not only my favorite actor on screen, but also off screen. The more I started learning about him, the more I started learning about his philanthropy and how important it is to do that. I think it's important to use whatever success I've had to be able to give back. So this was that opportunity, and so I just jumped at it.
Well, that's great. Thank you for doing it and taking your time to be here. Let me shift over to Rebecca for a second. And
absolutely. All right,
my turn?
passing the headphones.
Come
Absolutely.
on. Well, yeah.
Oh, they're so warm.
There we go. We got it all warmed up. So, tell
I'm
us.
Rebecca. I had leukemia when I was 12 years old and went through 2.5 years of chemotherapy and radiation.
Wow.
And that was in 1996, so you can kind of do the math and figure out how old I am. But they're still using the exact same treatment plan that they used in 1996, and it has lifelong health detriments, side effects. Infertility is one of them. I have a daughter who's 9 now. It took us 10 years to have her, but
wow.
I beat those odds. There's a lot of heart problems and bone problems and things that are associated with childhood cancer treatments. So that's kind of where the St. Baldrick's Foundation comes into play. And we even fund St. Jude's Research Clinic as well. So we work hand in hand with a lot of other childhood cancer organizations and kind of fill the gap that the government doesn't fill. They only give us 4% of the cancer budget from the NCI budget, and
only 4% of it goes to childhood cancer.
Only 4% of it goes to childhood cancer. The
Wow.
rest is for adult cancers, and there's 12 cancers specifically that kids do get that adults don't. So it's kind of a need that is there, and that's what we're trying to fill.
Wow, that's extraordinary. Now, do you live on the coast, or are you with the organization?
I do. I live in Gulfport.
Okay.
I live in Gulfport, and I've been a volunteer with St. Baldrick's for about 13 years now. And I even go to D.C. once a year and represent the whole state of Mississippi and try to get us specific funding, like change the Medicaid laws, make it easier for families and kids with cancer.
So tell us a little bit about what we can expect at this event. And I know Phil gave us these times, but tell us again where and when on Sunday the Rock the Bald event is.
Sure. It's at Ground Zero, August 17th, Sunday, from 3 to 7. We're going to have face painting, motorcycle rides, head shaving, ponytail donations, live music, Phil. And we're also going to have the Shuckers and I think they're called not the Seawolves anymore, but they have a different name now. The Breakers. Mascots there, taking pictures and signing autographs. So come see Schooner and Hook at the event as well. 3 to 7, Ground Zero. But mostly we'll be shaving the heads and just honoring these families. Our honored families that are local will be here at the events at Ground Zero, and you'll kind of be able to meet them and honor them and just show them how much we care about them.
And I know the goal is to raise money, but and to raise awareness, but is there a cost to attend, or can anybody just show up?
No. It's a free, open to the public event. We have general admission seating. I don't know if you've ever been in Ground Zero, but there's 3 floors. The second floor is usually for VIPs, and we are reserving that specifically for our honored families.
Wow.
But there will be cornhole and silent auction and things going on the third floor, and then we'll have table seating on the first floor. If you want up close to the stage, we are selling those seats for $25, and all of that money goes straight to the cause.
Wow, that's awesome. And if somebody wants to do that, what would they do to make that investment?
So if they wanted to they can just come day of and do that, or they can look on our Gulf Coast St. Baldrick's Facebook page. And if they just want to make a straight up donation, the specific website for this event is stbaldricks.org/events/Gulf Coast 2025.
Okay. So obviously this is a statewide program. So there's some folks, first of all, it's always a good day to come to the Mississippi Gulf Coast. So if you're not on the coast, this may be your good excuse to come down there. But for people who aren't in a position to come, but want to support this cause, they could look up St. Baldrick's Gulf Coast and make a contribution that sort of way.
Yes, sir. And then they can also go on the stbaldricks.org website and search Gulfport, Gulf Coast, Biloxi. I think it's under a bunch of different things. Or search my name specifically, Rebecca Morrow.
Well,
but if they don't have anything going on and they want to come down to the coast, we've got a baseball game tonight that we're raising money for cancer. We've got an event Saturday night at Ground Zero. We're raising money for childhood cancer. And then we've got our big event on Sunday. And it actually starts at 11 with a brunch. So we're going to be rocking out all day for childhood cancer.
That's extraordinary. That's extraordinary. And I didn't realize the percentage. It's such a small percentage of the budget ends up going to researching childhood cancers.
It really is, and a lot of it is because a majority of the cancer treatments work for adults, so they just figure we'll just use them for kids. But what they don't take into a factor is the fact that these kids' bodies are a quarter of the size of an adult. They're not through growing, and they're getting the same poisonous treatment that an adult would get to kill the cancer, but it really harms the kid. So our goal as St. Baldrick's is to find a treatment that kills the cancer but doesn't hurt the kid.
It's amazing that I didn't realize that the treatment now for childhood leukemia is the same as it would have been 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And if you're a 75-year-old and you get leukemia, if you're a 3-year-old and you get leukemia, you get the exact same treatment, the exact same everything. And that's what we're trying to change.
Well, Rebecca,
we've made some strides, and that's but we can't do it without the support of the community and the support of y'all.
Well, we've got about 30 seconds until we go to break. Do you or Phil have any final thoughts or anything you want to make sure the folks listening know about this event or St. Baldrick's?
Final thoughts.
Yeah, I'm passing the headphones.
All right, here we go. Passing the headphones. By the way, thanks for having us on today. Super appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Well, appreciate.
So, final thoughts.
Yeah, go ahead. We got about 30 seconds, Phil.
30 seconds. Yeah, I mean, you can come out all weekend. Again, Biloxi Shuckers game, Saturday night and Sunday at Ground Zero. And all you have to do is come out and have some fun and donate. And it's that simple. So would love to see everybody.
And for anybody who hadn't seen it, what night is Chicago Fire on?
Wednesday night. Chicago won Wednesdays. They got Med, Fire, and PD.
I'm showing my age. I don't know that anybody actually still watches TV when it comes on as opposed to pulling it down. But thank you, Phil, for what you're doing, and thanks for being with us.
Oh, boy. Thank you. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate it.
Y'all, this is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. We'll have final thoughts coming up next.
From the Venable Glass Traffic System.
All right, now to the important stuff.
Your VIP pass to hear what the most influential Mississippians are talking about.
This is very important. Huge news.
Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Happy Friday, everybody. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. Final segment. I hope, Lance, I didn't, I can be a warrior sometimes. I hope it didn't sound like I was saying nobody watches Chicago Fire. It's
No, you said it right. It's like
okay.
Nobody watches TV at the scheduled time anymore.
Exactly. That's what I meant, but I didn't want
I didn't want
Phil to have come on the show and go, and then in the last second, the guy dumps on my livelihood here. It's 10 million people watch the last finale. It is very, very popular.
Yeah, very
stuff.
well watched show. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know when anything comes on. The schedule. I just know when it shows up in there. I watch it.
We stayed in a hotel this summer with the kids, and it didn't have a smart TV in it. I mean, it had the sort of TV.
Yeah, the old tube in there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it was a flat screen, but
it was upgraded.
But my 4-year-old lost his mind because
he didn't know what to do. Huh?
He wanted I forget what show he wanted. Paw Patrol, Wildcat, something. And he was like, I'm going to watch that, and we kept explaining, well, that's not how this TV works. It just, whatever's on at 1:30 in the afternoon on Saturday is what's on.
There's no streaming happening.
Yeah, no, there's no picking it. And it was just like his mind was blown because he's never
had to do the TV guide.
And the older ones know it really only because of sports. They understand that, something actually starts at a certain time. But to the 4-year-old, he's like, I don't know what. Can't you go to the Disney app and pull up Bluey? Like, what's the deal?
My dad is 79, and he. In the last 6 months, I've taken him off of cable type stuff and into streaming. And some of the questions you would get out of the gate were almost like a 4-year-old would ask, except vice versa almost. Like he has no idea what streaming versus watching direct TV was. I mean, he knew when it was on. He watched it. Everything was Laura Ingram's on at this time, and so. And I was kept telling him for years, like, you don't have to be glued to that. You can do this anytime.
Right.
And eventually he's like, finally, okay, let's give it a try. And when you were trying to explain to him, like a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. So you're like, okay, look, what's live is live. And you're going to watch that live. But you can also stream anything that's already happened. And so making that leap of like, oh, there's two things. There's the left hand and the right hand. Oh, so there's the TV schedule that still exists. Yes. Then you have all the other stuff over here. That blew his mind. I mean, it took a month for him to finally – he would text me and go, no, where do I find this at this time? I'm like, no, quit doing that. And he's got it now. Now he's like, oh, my God, man. I mean, this is amazing. But it is an adjustment.
Absolutely. I'd be curious. And I'm sure there are still a large number of people who watch, who know Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. Mm-hmm. That's when my show comes on. But, I mean, I don't remember the last time I watched something other than sports where I knew, Thursday at 7 o'clock. That's when
and I'll be happy to agree with you. I don't have a clue. Netflix is much better about dropping the whole thing at one time.
Right.
And but again, the King of the Hill, the new remake, they dropped. It was on Disney, and it was dropped all 8 or so episodes at one time. So I like it better. I'll get into more of the series stuff if I can kind of mainstream it and mainline it all the way through. But I'm not going to be waiting for an episode to drop. Usually, I'm going to catch them all. I'm about 4 or 5 of them at one time.
But that's where I do this less now that I've got kids. But I mean, that's where I feel like they get you is, it's 9 o'clock. Mm-hmm. You finished. You're shutting down for the day. You put on one episode,
and then it's 2 a.m.
It got to the point. My wife and I, when we don't have time to actually sit down and watch TV all that often, but when we do, there will be times where we'll sit down at 9:30 or 10 o'clock and go, no, we can't watch that show because we know we're going to watch the next one and then the next one and then the next one and then we're going to be exhausted. Let's watch something that's good, but not so good that we're not going to be able to turn it off when the episode's over because they really do get you.
Have you watched The Waterfront?
Mm-mm.
God, that's a good one. I just stumbled across it the other day, and I mentioned it to my brother-in-law and sister over dinner the other night. Like, man, I got to tell y'all about a good series that you may want to tune into. And I mentioned it, like, oh man, we've seen that. I mean, they've seen everything. Like they know all the good stuff. But I'll say, if you haven't watched The Waterfront, it's kind of like Ozark, but set in South Carolina.
Oh, interesting.
It's very good, and it's boating more than it is backwoods or the river life or lake life. Very good show, and you can go through all 8 episodes. And
Ozark was definitely one of the series that we would not let ourselves watch.
One at a time.
We just knew if we put on an Ozark at 9, it was going to be 1 o'clock.
That's the way this one is. You'll watch 4 or 5 minutes. Man, I'm 3 left. There's only 3 to go. We can do this.
Yeah.
We ain't got work tomorrow. Oh yeah, we do.
Well, and then then they'll wait so many years before putting another season out. You go, well,
I got burned out with Ozark because of that. That was the last one. It just took so long to get there.
We got into Ozark late. It had already concluded, and we started watching it. And I'm telling you, it was like maybe 3 months after we started watching it, we finished it. So, y'all, thank you for letting me spend your these last 3 hours with you. I always enjoy seeing my friend Lance and spending some time with the SuperTalk audience. This has been Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Coming up next, we got Fox News, followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News. See y'all in a few weeks.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.